My name is Larissa. In this video, I'm going to show you how to prepare the side part of this scrap cap for sewing. I designed the sewing pattern for this scrap cap myself. If you have questions, definitely write in the comments. The first step is to iron your fabric. The next step is to print out my pattern, cut it, tape it, and use it to make your own beautiful scrap caps. The pattern is available, the link to it on the right at the top of the screen. For the side part of your scrap cap, you need to fold your fabric, then align the center of the pattern with the fold of the fabric. Your next step is to trace all around your side part of the pattern. Remove the paper pattern and pin together both layers of the fabric on your side part. When you remove both paper patterns, you need to cut the fabric out. For the side part, cut both layers of the fabric and make sure that all your lines are nice and straight so that it's easier to work with your fabric later. Both sides of my fabric look the same, so I mark the wrong side. I use paper pattern to make marks on my fabric where reinforcements by zigzag on my ties begins and ends. Next step is to prepare the side part for sewing. First, I fold down and iron the short end of the tie. Then I fold down and iron the curvy part at the beginning of the tie. That's where my zigzag stitch will be. I do the same thing on the other side. I fold down the short end and then iron, and I fold down the curvy part at the beginning and finish at the end where I just marked. The next step is folding down the seam. On the curvy part, it will be the second fold, and I iron down. I do that very carefully, and I sprinkle the water so that my ironing is really high quality. So you see I'm folding the seam and then I'm making the second fold on the curvy part. I do it dry first, then I sprinkle and make sure that all of it is nice and clean and ready to go. The ends of my ties need to be ironed down like this. You see the direction is different. To do that, I'm going to iron out the fold at the bottom of my scrap cap and go all the way down the bottom, folding the seam allowance and ironing it. Now I spray some water, fold my tie the opposite way and iron down so it's nice and clean. I continue ironing down the seam allowance at the bottom of my side part all the way to the other end. And once I am there, see, I'm sprinkling again to make sure that all my lines are very clean, because a lot of ironing produces professional look, and that's what you're after, right? So we are going to the very end of the second tie, and then we are changing the direction of the fold at the very end. Ironing it flat, then folding it again, and for some reason, probably because I'm right-handed, I folded it on the other side. I flipped it around, and here it is, very nice and clean. Once interlocked, the ends of the ties should look like this. I'm going to interlock my corners of the ties, then sprinkle them with some water and iron. Make sure to align the edges of your tie. Then fold down and iron all the way through the bottom of your side scrap cap. You iron your hem so that it is around half an inch width. You go all the way to the other end, then you interlock the corners on this end of the tie and sprinkle with water and iron down. And make sure that the edges of the tie align with one another so it's all nice and clean. Fold some more and continue ironing until the bottom of your scrub cap side part is done and your corners look just like this. We are finished with the ironing and we are going to reinforce the beginning of the ties with zigzag stitch. Do it on both sides of the scrub cap side and you will see that they look just like that. Seams are reinforced. There is zigzag stitch at the beginning of both ties. I tie the knots at the beginning and cut off the excess thread at the top, and my ends need to look just like that. I'll show you how to do it. I start with the left tie, making sure that my sewing is wrong side up. At the very beginning in the corner, you have to help the mechanism of your sewing machine. Do it practically manually and do the same on the corner. Just do it stitch by stitch. After you pass the corner, the machine can pull the fabric by itself. Make sure that your needle hits fabric and not the air on both sides of the stitch, left and right. And you continue on the bottom, stitching up the hem, and continue to the end of the other tie. At the very end, you also help the machine, and you practically do it manually, stitch by stitch, after you turn the corner. The last step to finish my ties is to hide the thread that's hanging off of them between the layers of fabric. I stick the needle between the layers of fabric, thread the leftover thread through the needle, pull the needle through and cut off the threads that are hanging out. Now it's all nice and clean. The last step in preparing the side part of your scrub cap is marking the center of it with a pin. Now you're ready to put the parts together.